So just got through with a really fun and entertaining night of boxing. And for this video, I'm going to be focusing on Miguel Berchelt as he managed to successfully defend his WBC Super Featherweight Championship against Takashi Miura. Really good fight. Definitely overwhelmingly positive performance as far as Berchelt's concerned. Won the majority of the rounds fairly clearly. Miura, however, was game throughout the entirety of the fight. Several moments where he was hurt, but would come right back, or where he was hurt, but hurt for only a split instant, a split second, and would continue just kind of charging forward and trying to bomb away at Berchelt with that big left hand that Miura has become particularly known for, especially since his United States debut. Berchelt managed to drop Miura in the first round. Just caught him with a clean left hook. Dropped him. It was a good hard shot, but at the same time, you could tell that Miura wasn't necessarily overwhelmingly hurt by it. Maybe a little bit shocked early, caught cold a little bit. But it seemed like once he got into a rhythm, once he got into a groove, he started taking those shots a lot better. It really wasn't until probably you got into the middle rounds where the Berchelt's kind of accumulation of shots started to look like they were starting to take its toll on Miura, and there might be a possible stoppage coming at some point. But that wound up not necessarily ever happening because Miura, as I mentioned before, just has a very solid chin, just solid punch resistance as a whole. There were several instances where Berchelt just banged away to Miura's body, and Miura took the shots, and gave back in kind, or at the very least threw back in kind. Sometimes he landed in return, sometimes he missed in return, but he always had something ready in order to counter what Berchelt was doing. And, it just shows and proves just how dangerous of a fighter Miura is. Basically, as long as he's on his feet, he's dangerous. You saw that in the Francisco Vargas fight. You saw that in the Miguel Roman fight. If you hit him with your best punch and he's not down and out and completely out of the fight, he could very well still come back and hit you with something that you wouldn't never expect from somebody that might be wobbly, hurt, on Queer Street, about to be knocked out. Because the guy carries insane power, and even more so, that power gets thrown out there more freely when he's hurt. When he's feeling like he's in danger. He has that fighter's mentality, like, I'm going to get you before you get me. If I feel like I'm in danger of getting taken out, I'm going to try and hit you with a nuclear arsenal and just lay waste to you. Just try and one-hit or quit you. He was trying that all night, just didn't turn out well for him. There was a few moments where, in particular to the body, where it seemed like he was hurting Berchelt to the body, particularly in the 9th and the 10th round. Where Berchelt looked like he was buckling over just a little bit. It looked like there was a little bit of give to Berchelt, especially considering the fact that Berchelt had been pretty much unloading the kitchen sink on Miura the entire fight, and Miura really wasn't going anywhere. He was continuously just charging forward, on some Jason Voorhees, Friday the 13th shit, just stalking and attacking, and I don't even really want to compare him to Jason Voorhees necessarily, because Voorhees was more of a slow stalk. This Miura was running you down, just trying to just attack and just bombing with that left hand all the way. You'd see that left hand, I imagine in the arena where they had it at the Forum there, the crowd was oohing and aahing at the punches that Miura missed, because I imagine just being there that and I've been there before, that the punches, just the way that Miura was winding up with those shots, that you could see those punches coming from every seat in that arena. You could see from the start to the ending of that punch, and just how much effort that he was throwing into it, and the fact that he was huffing when he was throwing. He's on some female tennis shit, just grunting as he was throwing that shot. Just trying to throw everything that he had. Every bit of soul and spirit energy and shit that he had into that left hand, and some he's trying to throw a spirit bomb at his ass on some Dragon Ball Z shit. Just wilding out, man. It was a very entertaining fight all the way through. It wasn't as action packed as I imagined it was going to be. Really, I thought that Berchelt's overall power was going to be too much for Miura, and that he was really going to look to kind of put it on him and kind of show out in the fight. But he actually played it a bit smarter than I thought he would. He kind of stuck and moved. Kind of took the box now and get it done cleanly and clearly. and look a little bit better next time. Instead of, like, say what he did to Vargas, where he just went in there and just laid waste to him. Here against Miura, he played a little bit closer to the chest, played a little bit smarter. Didn't just completely go all out trying to KO Miura. There were certain moments where, he opened up a little bit on Miura, but at the same time, he was always very mindful of the power that Miura was throwing back in return. And, that mindfulness allowed him to be defensively responsible, made it so that Miura did miss a majority of those huge bombs that he was lobbing at him. And, otherwise, even the shots that Miura managed to land on him, Berchelt was largely able to roll with him for the most part. Really didn't see very many punches really dissuade Berchelt from what he was doing, at the very least to the chin. There was definitely a few body shots, as I mentioned earlier, that Miura took a little bit of wind out of Berchelt with a couple of those left hands pretty much right to the solar plexus, right, where your diaphragm is, knocking the wind out of you. Berchelt would respond in kind, albeit more to the sides of, like, your abdomen. But Miura just did his thing. Berchelt did his thing, and Berchelt came away with a clear-cut victory. Unanimous decision. I think one of the judges had it a little too wide, though. Giving Berchelt every round, I can kind of see it, but at the same time, I think that Miura's effort that he put forth, not even just the effort, but there was definitely a couple of rounds where. You could definitely argue it back and forth, and if anything, Miura should have probably deserved a couple of rounds in there at the very least. One of the judges gave him 1 round, and one of the other judges actually gave him 4 rounds. Incidentally, I'd say about 2 or 3 is about probably where it should have been in terms of scoring rounds for Miura. I personally gave him 2, but I could have seen 1 or 2 more given to him. If you're looking at, especially compared to the way he was doing earlier on, compared to some of those later rounds where he managed to take some wind out of Berchelt's sails. Berchelt did finish really nicely, though, especially in the 12th round. Finished like a champion. Looked to kind of put the exclamation point on it. Miura, at that point, I think, was feeling kind of the tempo getting to him. It seemed like the last couple of rounds was where Miura kind of finally gassed out. Like, he was very rugged and raw throughout the entire fight, just coming at him, throwing bombs. But it seemed like when he kind of needed it the most in the last couple of rounds, he really didn't have it to give. But at the same time, there's so many fighters that leave a lot on the table until those championship rounds, and then they unload, and it's not enough. And they even still have stuff left in the tank after the fight. You could tell that they still have, like, a certain amount of energy. At the very least with Miura, he laid it all on the table, laid all his cards on the table, laid it all on the line, and unfortunately for him, he came up short. But he's still very much a top level operator in the weight class. I wouldn't count Miura out against any fighter at super featherweight or even lightweight. Should he choose to move up? Both guys did weigh in fairly heavy on the night of the fight. Both were 146 and a quarter. Of course, Miura has made the weight for many, many years. He's been the weight class basically his entire career. Berchelt, is a little bit younger. I could very easily see him moving up at some point because, his body, I think, has a little bit, not necessarily more room to grow, but I guess more room to grow. Just by virtue of the fact that, he's at that age where you kind of fill out to the nth degree, to what you're going to kind of be at as an adult, at least until you get into, like, your late 40s anyway, where you start to lose muscle mass and such. Just a solid win for Berchelt. Berchelt, to me, I think, arguably could actually take the #1 spot in this division. Of course, I'm going to make a separate video for the Jesuit Corrales versus Robinson Castellanos fight. In a fight where, Corrales definitely had some trouble with Castellanos, but at the same time, everybody has trouble with Castellanos. He's a very difficult guy to fight. It takes very particular styles in order to kind of really bring out the deficiencies in Castellanos and be able to defeat him. And that's a very particular style that you don't necessarily see, especially often. But I'll get to that in the video where I talk about them specifically. But Berchelt did a bang-up job, completely laid waste to Vargas in his first championship fight, or at least his first full championship fight. He was the WBO interim champion, which actually leads me to HBO jock and Vasyl Lomachenko all night, saying that, he's the kingpin of the division, he's the arguably pound-for-pound #1, or they'd say that he is the pound-for-pound #1. But maybe, possibly, maybe it's Andre Ward, and then they start ratcheting off Canelo and Golovkin and Rigon down, and then eventually Gonzalez much later on, and all kinds of crazy shit. But just the hyperbole with regards to Lomachenko is out of control, man. It's completely out of control. Miguel Berchelt, for those of you that don't know, was Vasyl Lomachenko's mandatory last year. Matter of fact, he was Roman Martinez's mandatory before that. He was actually mandated to fight Roman Martinez. They did the purse bids. The fight was scheduled, and then Roman Martinez pulled out on, I think it was like a week and a half's notice, with an injury, quote unquote. And then all of a sudden, like a week and a half later, when the fight is actually supposed to be taking place, Martinez is announcing that he's fighting Vasyl Lomachenko and giving him a shot at his title. Oh, wow. How convenient. How convenient that turned out to be. And of course, in the aftermath of that, Berchelt, as the interim WBO champion, was the mandatory for Vasyl Lomachenko. Lomachenko's people basically told Berchelt, like, you being the interim champion doesn't guarantee you a mandatory of being the mandatory for shit. So fuck off and, do whatever you want. We're going to go over here and, lowball a bunch of other people and not even give you an offer. Fuck lowball and not even give you an offer to begin with. And then, eventually fight Nicholas Walters. But Lomachenko's the kingpin of the division. He had his opportunity to fight Berchelt. He didn't want it. At the very least, Francisco Vargas stepped up to the plate, gave the man his opportunity, which he didn't have to do. He didn't even have to do because Berchelt, as a champion for the WBO, an interim champion, but a champion nonetheless, wasn't even ranked in the WBC. So, really, that was a total optional defense as far as Vargas was concerned. He stepped up to the plate, came up short. Berchelt came up and made his name off him. And, hey, Berchelt's doing his damn thing now. Berchelt. Corrales and Berchelt are the number 1 and the number 2 in the division. Period, point blank. Vasyl Lomachenko has not beaten anybody to deserve placement higher than either of them. Corrales beat the man of the division, which was Takashi Uchiyama. Berchelt laid waste to Francisco Vargas, who was arguably the man, if not the number 2 in the division. And he just laid waste to Takashi Miura, who was the former number 2 of the division, right behind Uchiyama. Whereas Vasyl Lomachenko has been fighting, blown up featherweights and a guy in Roman Martinez who, was really a middling champion his entire career, for what it's worth. The last time that Lomachenko fought anybody on the level of Vargas or Miura in Orlando Salido, he lost. He lost. Period. Point blank. Then he has yet to go back up and fight somebody of that caliber once again. It hasn't happened yet. So, for all that being said, Berchelt did his damn thing. One of the best fighters in the 130-pound division. Definitely has room to grow. 130 or 135, I think he's very live against just about anybody and everybody in either division. I think Mikey Garcia might be somewhat of an outstanding figure as far as that's regarding, but he might not even ever be returning to lightweight ever again. Especially if he beats Adrian Broner coming up. I doubt we'll see him back at lightweight again because, the bigger money tends to be at the higher weights for any and every fighter. That's the reason why Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez has moved up all these weights largely. He's a fat super flyweight, for fuck's sake. It's not so much that he can't make the weight. Although, I'm sure he's enjoying his cakes and cookies and stuff with his newfound riches. But the money tends to be offered a little bit more. They give you that little bit of extra incentive when you start moving up weights. So, that's the name of the game for a lot of these guys. And so they'll trade longevity and well, not even necessarily legacy, but they'll trade longevity for longevity at one weight class for multi-divisional excellence and bigger money. Could go on a rant about Robert Guerrero in that regard, but he had his fight earlier today. I think I'll make a separate video for that whole card, as a matter of fact. But hey, Berchelt did his damn thing. Fantastic win for him. 2 very clear-cut, on the verge of dominant performances over Vargas and Miura in his last couple of fights. And he's performing fight in and fight out, doing a damn fine job at doing it. Great fighter. I think really doing some big things, and I think really he deserves more credit than he gets. He's one of these fighters that came up in a kind of an unheralded fashion. He wasn't a heavy hype job. He wasn't a PBC hype job or a HBO hype job or a Showtime hype job or a Top Rank hype job. He wasn't getting all this hype on his way up the ranks. He was fighting on these small cards on BN Sports Español and Univision and Unimas and stuff like that. Getting a fair bit of fanfare from Mexico and stuff, but not so much in the English speaking sphere. So if you're not watching some of those cards, I think you're really missing out on some fantastic talent that could become your future all-time greats, or at the very least your future greats. But All that said, I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.